Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life, and welcome to this 1983 horror movie review video. After a couple days of hiatus here, as I was out of town, and then, as I said in a post on my channel, I had a movie that I was going to review, but I watched most of it and realized this isn't a horror movie. It was a Philippine drama movie. But anyway, that being said, the movie that we're going to take a look at today in this video is one that I do have the physical media for. I have on DVD for Midnight Madness series, and that movie is a slasher from 1983, Mountaintop Motel Massacre. I really like that cover here. I like the tagline, please do not disturb Evelyn. She already is. So yeah, I know there's a Blu-ray, I think Vinegar Syndrome version of this movie as well, but I just have the DVD. So anyway, let's talk about Mountain Motel Massacre here from 1983. Now, first thing I should mention is this movie actually got its wide release across the United States in 1986. Um, but it was released in 1983 in the South. I think like one city. I don't know if I have what city that is. Well, New World Pictures acquired it in 1985 and then gave a wide release, theatrical release in March of 1986. So just wanted to throw that out there in case some of you are saying this isn't a 1983 movie, it's a 1986 movie. As far as a wide release goes, yes, but it was released in 1983 movie according to my list. So that's what we're going to go with. But anyway, with that being said, Mountaintop Motel Massacre is a 1983 American psychological slasher film written and directed by Jim McCullough Sr. The plot concerns a psychotic elderly woman who, after being freed from incarceration, returns to the motel she ran and begins murdering the guests. Filmed in 1982 in Shreveport, Shreveport, Louisiana, the film was first independently released in the southern United States under just the title Mountaintop Motel. Um, it had a few different names, actually. Um, it ultimately became Mountaintop Motel Massacre in March of 1986. So, in rural Louisiana in 1981, Evelyn, who has recently been released from a psychiatric institution, finds her daughter Lori practicing witchcraft in their basement. This causes her to have a mental breakdown, and she stabs Lori to death. She convinces the authorities that she had nothing to do with her daughter's death, though suspicious looms over her. Adjacent to their home is the Mountaintop Motel, a group of outdoor cabins that Evelyn rented out as motel rooms prior to her institutionalization. One morning, Reverend Bill McWiley arrives at the property and rents one of the rooms. Shortly after, a man named Crenshaw arrives and also takes a room. The two men converse about the rundown state of the cabins and share a drink. Meanwhile, newlyweds Vernon and Mary pass through on a road trip and rent a cabin. At nightfall on the nearby highway, cousins Prissy and Tanya have their car break down en route to Nashville and are picked up by Al, a lascivious man who pretends to be a record producer in hopes of betting both of the women. They also arrive at the motel, finding driving conditions unsafe due to a torrential rainstorm. Mary is getting ready for bed in the bathroom when Vernon is bitten by a snake that Evelyn planted in the room. So that's to set up the premise, the beginning of Mountaintop Motel Massacre. As far as the cast goes, we have Anna Chappell as Evelyn, Bill Thurman as Reverend Bill McWiley, Will Mitchell as Al, Virginia Lordens as Tanya, Major Brock as Crushaw, Amy Hill as Prissy, and Marion Jones as Mary. So yeah, that's to set up the premise and the cast for the 1983 psychological slasher movie Mountaintop Motel Massacre. Um, I have to be honest. My expectations were pretty low going into this movie because I just haven't heard anything great about it. And I'm not saying that it's a great movie, but I think because my expectations were kind of at bay, I think this was a little bit better of a slasher than I thought it was going to be going into it. So it's kind of a mixed review as far as pros and cons, but let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the things that I liked about Mountaintop Motel Massacre. Um, it's actually a competently made film. I mean, for a lower budget slasher movie, especially during this time, you're not used to having competent filmmaking in terms of the fact that it is a well shot film, especially for being a lower budget slasher movie. It has really good cinematography and editing. It's just a competently made movie in terms of the technical aspects of it. It looks good. It's well lit. So that was the first thing that kind of took me aback by the movie. I wasn't expecting anything like that. But really, the best thing about this movie as a slasher movie, I can say, is the atmosphere. This movie has great atmosphere. It has a really good Southern Gothic type of style and atmosphere with a strong setting of this house and especially the motel with these outdoor cabins. And then also you've got this rainstorm going on as a lot of these characters arrive to stay at the motel. So all that really helps create a lot of good atmosphere throughout this movie, especially the second half of the movie. I think the effects or the after effects of the kills that we get in the movie, I think they show some really good practical makeup and gore effects. Given the fact that her weapon of choice that Evelyn uses in this movie is a scythe or a scythe. I think it's a scythe, actually. Sythe. That curved blade thing. That's what she uses for the most part. Um, and so she slashes a lot of necks. There's some slashes across the face, and I thought the practical gore effects and blood and gore was quite good in this movie. Now, you don't actually see the kills like on screen. It's more the after effects after the fact, but it does hold up pretty well. It's a case where practical gore effects definitely benefit in this movie. I have to say too that I did like the use of Evelyn uses different different things like rats and cockroaches and a snake at one point, as I mentioned in the premise, that bites one of the characters. It just kind of provides a very unsettling and sort of unique aspect to this slasher movie that you don't get in a lot of other slasher movies. Just using those other sort of not necessarily things to kill, but just to be unsettling and kind of get the characters, the guests in the motel to be on edge. Um, and then I think just how she gets her victims by having these underground tunnels, where she's able to pop up like in the bathroom or in these rooms by having like the floor open up to these underground tunnels that she's walking through, kind of like an underground tunnel system. I thought that was very unique and definitely adds a different element to this movie that you don't often get. So yeah, there's some positives to this movie for sure. Mountaintop Motel Massacre, some things that I really like about the movie. As far as cons go, it's not a very well paced movie. In fact, I would say after the initial kill of her daughter and her getting away with that, there's about 30 minutes of like character introductions and characters talking and dialogue that happens. Really not much happens. It's kind of, I'm not going to lie, I almost dozed off a couple of times during that initial 30, like 10 to 35-minute mark of the movie. But then the last half of the movie is quite good and action packed. But yeah, overall, it's just not a well paced slasher movie, I would say. You kind of have to get through the first half hour, 45 minutes or so. Uh, because there are some parts that are kind of boring initially. I have to say, I didn't find Evelyn to be all that effective or intimidating as a killer. I think if this actually was what Evelyn looked like on the cover, which it's not, I'm not even sure that's the same actress, to be honest with you. I think they have some really good artwork there, is what they did. But this is actually what Evelyn looks like in the movie. She's much older than the front show would make you believe here. She's just kind of an old, frail woman, to be honest with you. Not quite the psychotic looking killer that they have on the front here. So that's a little bit disappointing. But yeah, there just wasn't anything about her that I found to be overly unique or um, intimidating. I didn't feel like the suspense or the tension didn't feel the suspense or tension that we could have gotten was really there, especially given the aspect of the underground tunnels and everything. I just don't think they utilized those different elements as well as they could have in terms of building some suspense and tension so that the last 20 minutes of the movie had some stakes to it. The acting and the characters are pretty wonky and weak. A lot of the characters, when they see her approach with her scythe, they just kind of stand there and wait for her to kill. Kind of that whole, no, don't kill me, instead of running away or anything. So that was kind of annoying. You could argue it's so bad it's good in terms of the characters and the acting, maybe. But that was just something that I found as very much a con in the movie. The kills, as I mentioned earlier, with the gore, they are cutaway kills. You don't get the visceral stabbing or kills on screen, the violence on screen that you often will get in other slasher movies during this time. So that's something to be aware of. And then my final con is I didn't think the final conclusion or confrontation, the end of the movie, I just felt was like it was kind of underwhelming and not really all that satisfying. Um, it's I don't know. It's just kind of the way that Evelyn is taken down was a little bit cheap and lazy. I thought. And then there's an apparition of a character who was killed earlier in the movie that just kind of shows up at the end of the movie that really doesn't make any sense. But it's a 1983 slasher movie. What can you say? Overall, guys, I don't think it's the worst slasher movie, certainly that I've seen from the '80s so far. There are some good things about it, and I can recommend it as far as like a free one time watch if you could find it on streaming or getting this DVD. I don't think I paid much for this DVD, and I'm happy having the DVD. I don't necessarily know that I'm going to go out and try to get the Blu-ray on Vinegar Syndrome. I don't think the movie's that great, where I'm going to go out and spend $20 on it or anything. But that being said, it's a slasher movie from 1983. I'm going to give Mountaintop Motel Massacre a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. It could have been better, but I've seen a lot of slasher movies that are worse. So it's kind of right in the middle, kind of a mixed bag of a slasher movie. So 6 out of 10 for Mountaintop Motel Massacre. Like I said, I would recommend watching it, checking it out if you haven't seen it before. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content and my channel going forward. Comment down below if you guys have seen Mountaintop Motel Massacre, if you like it as a slasher movie, if you like it more as just like a psychological mental illness kind of horror movie. What are your thoughts? Comment down below. But with all that being said, thank you for watching. I think I'm going to have one more movie for August here to review for 1983. I was going to have two, but I'll mention it later. But there was a movie that is actually more of a 1984 movie that I think I'm going to hold off on. So with that being said, though, thank you guys for watching. I do hope you're enjoying these 1983 horror movie reviews. And as always, stay scared. Bye.